Chosen one, while you've been walking your path with unshakable dignity, an explosive argument just erupted behind closed doors with your name at the center of every heated word, and what was said will shock you to your core because it reveals the true depth of manipulation that's been orchestrated around your life. There's someone in your orbit, not quite a colleague but close enough to observe your moves, someone who's been conducting an elaborate social experiment with you as the unwitting subject. This individual has spent considerable time studying your patterns, convinced of having decoded the blueprint of your success, and identified the precise pressure points that would bring your carefully constructed world crashing down. But chosen ones don't operate according to blueprints that ordinary minds can decipher, and that fundamental miscalculation is about to cost this individual everything built in the shadows. The trap constructed with surgical precision is about to snap shut on the creator's own fingers instead of yours, and the sound of these schemes imploding will echo through upcoming seasons and beyond. This orchestrator of chaos has been hosting what are called strategy sessions, but what you'd recognize immediately as gossip councils dressed in professional language. Think of intimate gatherings where coffee flows as freely as judgment, where your choices become the evening's entertainment, where speculation about your future takes on the weight of prophecy. Each meeting was a carefully choreographed performance designed to position this person as the insider who truly understands the chess game everyone else is merely observing. Vivid pictures have been painted for the captive audience, describing the inevitable moment when your confidence would crack, when your standards would prove too rigid for real-world application, when your refusal to compromise would finally isolate you from opportunities that lesser souls would grab without hesitation. The words spoken carried the authority of someone who had studied your weaknesses until predicting your downfall seemed possible with mathematical precision. While external behaviors were being analyzed, you were undergoing an internal transformation that completely rewrote the rules of engagement. Your recent period of selective solitude wasn't withdrawal from the world, it was preparation for a level of power that couldn't possibly be comprehended from a position in the shallow end of consciousness. The puppet master identified what seemed like the perfect opportunity to test theories about your predictability. The discovery was made that someone exceptional was going to cross your path, someone whose energy signature matched frequencies you'd been calling in through your spiritual practice. This connection carried the potential to elevate every aspect of your existence, to provide the partnership that would amplify your already formidable power into something that could reshape entire industries. But in twisted logic, your happiness represents a threat to the carefully maintained balance of the social ecosystem. The conviction developed that your elevation would somehow diminish standing in the hierarchy, that your joy would cast shadows on achievements, that your authentic success would expose the hollow nature of manufactured influence. So orchestration began for an intervention disguised as an introduction. The plan crafted was diabolical in its sophistication and breathtaking in its arrogance. Positioning occurred as the benevolent matchmaker who would save you from making a terrible mistake by steering you away from this genuine connection and towards someone more suitable for the narrative. The alternative in mind wasn't just inadequate, it was specifically chosen to dim your light, to create drama instead of harmony, to provide entertainment for gossip councils rather than elevation for your soul. When this carefully packaged alternative finally approached your orbit, something magnificent happened that revealed the true depth of your transformation. The intuitive warning system you'd been developing through extended inner work activated like a spiritual fire alarm, sending signals so clear and urgent that ignoring them would have required a complete betrayal of your authentic self. The offer came wrapped in exactly the kind of packaging designed to appeal to someone they'd misjudged as predictable and desperate for external validation. It should have been irresistible to the version of you they thought they understood, the one who would prioritize social acceptance over spiritual alignment, immediate gratification over long-term fulfillment, other people's approval over inner wisdom. But the you who examined their glittering trap was operating from a completely different level of consciousness than the you they'd been studying from a distance. When you looked at their carefully curated opportunity, you didn't just see the surface presentation that had dazzled their focus groups of amateur psychologists. You perceived the energetic signature underneath, the subtle vibrations that spoke of transaction rather than connection, of convenience rather than chemistry. of someone who would view your heart as a stepping stone rather than a sanctuary. Your response wasn't just rejection, it was recognition followed by immediate protective action. The speed and finality of your decision sent shockwaves through their entire operation, because it revealed something they hadn't accounted for in their calculations. Chosen ones don't deliberate when their soul speaks with absolute clarity. There was no hesitation, no second guessing, no desire to gather more information or seek additional opinions. You simply saw the truth of what was being offered and responded with the kind of decisive power that reshapes reality around its expression. The puppet master found themselves in the unprecedented position of having to explain to their eager audience why their carefully predicted outcome had failed to materialize so spectacularly. The pressure began building during what was supposed to be a celebration meeting, a gathering where they would reveal how perfectly they had orchestrated your downfall and positioned themselves as the wise prophet who had seen it coming. Instead, they found themselves facing increasingly uncomfortable questions from people who had invested social capital in their predictions and now demanded explanations for why reality had refused to cooperate with their fantasies. Why didn't you take the bait that seemed so perfectly tailored to your circumstances? How did you see through deceptions that had fooled people they considered much more sophisticated than you? What kind of person possesses the clarity to reject opportunities that others would fight wars to obtain? The questions multiplied like pressure fractures in a dam that was never designed to contain the force of genuine curiosity mixed with growing suspicion. Then came the moment that transforms this story from gossip into gospel, the revelation that will send electricity through your nervous system when you fully grasp its implications. One of their most trusted confidants, someone who had been nodding along with their character assassination for months, suddenly experienced their own moment of awakening in the middle of a particularly vicious dissection of your choices. This person stood up in the middle of the orchestrated discussion and delivered the words that would detonate their entire social construct. If this is how you analyze and judge someone who isn't even here to defend themselves, what exactly are you saying about each of us when we leave these meetings? The silence that followed was the kind that precedes avalanches and revolutions, the moment when everyone simultaneously realizes they've been dancing on the edge of a cliff while admiring the view. What happened next was nothing short of spectacular in its swift and total transformation of power dynamics. Every person in that room suddenly understood that they hadn't been participants in sophisticated social analysis, they had been unwitting performers in someone else's theater of manipulation. Every confidence they had shared, every vulnerability they had revealed, every moment of trust they had extended, was now revealed as potential ammunition in future character assassinations. The explosive argument that erupted wasn't just about you anymore, it was about the fundamental violation of trust that occurs when someone collects personal information like a weapon stockpile while pretending to offer friendship and support. Voices were raised, accusations flew like arrows finding their marks, and years of suppressed intuitions about this person's true nature came pouring out in a torrential flood of righteous indignation. In defending their matchmaking instincts, they revealed information about their chosen candidate that exposed exactly why your spiritual alarm system had activated so dramatically. The person they had positioned as your ideal match was revealed to have a pattern of treating relationships like business transactions, of maintaining multiple romantic options while promising exclusivity to each, of using emotional manipulation to extract resources and opportunities from partners who believed they were building something genuine together. Every red flag your intuition had detected was suddenly waving in broad daylight for everyone to analyze and discuss. The beautiful irony wasn't lost on anyone present. The puppet master's desperate attempt to prove their superior understanding of human nature had instead demonstrated their complete blindness to the character flaws that make someone unsuitable for authentic connection. They had chosen your supposed ideal match based on criteria that revealed everything about their own values and nothing about yours. The alternative they had tried to steer you toward wasn't just emotionally unavailable and manipulative, they were actively involved in schemes that would have created legal and professional complications for anyone foolish enough to become entangled with them. Your refusal to engage hadn't just protected your heart from disappointment, It had shielded your entire life from the kind of contamination that destroys reputations and derails careers. The spiritual guidance system that had warned you away from their trap had been operating with access to information that your conscious mind couldn't have possessed, but your soul had somehow detected through channels that rational analysis couldn't explain. As the full scope of what you had avoided became clear to everyone in the room, the puppet master found themselves facing something they had never experienced before. A room full of people who understood that their supposed superior insight was actually profound blindness dressed in sophisticated language. The reputation for strategic thinking and character assessment that they had cultivated over years of careful self-promotion crumbled in the space of a single conversation. The resolution of this cosmic drama unfolds with the kind of poetic justice that restores faith in universal balance. The network of gossip and manipulation that the puppet master had constructed around your life collapsed completely, leaving them isolated with the consequences of their choices, while you remained untouched by the chaos they had tried to create in your name. But the most beautiful aspect of this conclusion isn't their downfall, it's what began manifesting in your life as the universe rushed to fill the space that their manipulation had tried to contaminate. Your refusal to compromise your standards and your commitment to honoring your inner guidance created a magnetic field that began attracting opportunities and connections that matched your actual frequency rather than their distorted perception of your needs. The month they had targeted for your orchestrated downfall became instead the time of your elevation to new levels of recognition and respect. People throughout your professional network began reaching out with genuine opportunities, drawn by stories of your wisdom in avoiding entanglements that would have diminished rather than enhanced your reputation. Your ability to maintain dignity and discernment under pressure marked you as someone worthy of trust and collaboration. More significantly, the authentic connection you had been calling in through your spiritual practice began manifesting during this same period, arriving through natural synchronicity rather than manufactured introduction. This person carried none of the warning signals that had activated your intuitive alarm system, instead resonating with frequencies that felt like coming home after a long journey through foreign territory. The work environment that had been temporarily poisoned by gossip and behind-the-scenes manipulation began clearing itself as natural consequences played out and toxic elements removed themselves or were removed by systems that value integrity over politics. Your choice to maintain professional excellence while others played games positioned you perfectly to benefit from these positive changes. Looking back at the elaborate scheme that had been constructed around your choices, seeing how effortlessly you had recognized and avoided multiple layers of deception, understanding the chaos that erupted when you simply honored your truth, you began to grasp something magnificent about your own nature. This experience revealed that your recent period of spiritual development had transformed you into something far more powerful than someone who occasionally makes good choices. You had become someone whose very presence in authentic alignment disrupts systems of manipulation and control, whose commitment to truth creates ripples that expose hidden deceptions, whose refusal to play small games makes space for larger possibilities to emerge. Someone revealed that the puppet master had been spreading rumors about your financial situation, crafting elaborate stories about how your selective approach to opportunities indicated desperation disguised as standards. Pictures had been painted of you as someone whose confidence was merely a mask for insecurity, whose spiritual practices were escape mechanisms from harsh realities. The accuracy of these accusations hit like lightning because several people in that room suddenly realized their unconscious parroting of these narratives in their own circles, becoming unwitting distributors of poison that went unrecognized as toxic. The puppet master's influence had spread like a virus through professional networks, social gatherings and casual conversations, infecting perceptions of you in ways that would have taken tremendous energy to counteract if you had been operating from a defensive position. While busy construction occurred of false narratives about your supposed struggles, you were experiencing unprecedented expansion in every area claimed to be suffering. Your financial situation wasn't desperate. It was deliberately streamlined for maximum freedom and minimum attachment to systems that drain authentic power. Your selective approach to opportunities wasn't desperation. It was mastery of discernment that most people spend lifetimes trying to develop. The spiritual practices mocked as escapism were actually the very tools that allowed you to perceive manipulations with crystal clarity and respond from a position of strength rather than reaction. Every meditation session dismissed as avoiding reality was actually preparing you for moments like this, when the ability to remain centered while chaos erupts around you becomes your greatest strategic advantage. Someone else in that room, emboldened by the atmosphere of truth-telling, revealed that the puppet master had been collecting information about your personal life through mutual acquaintances, building detailed profiles of your preferences, your patterns, your vulnerabilities. Your existence had been treated like a research project, studying your responses to various stimuli, so prediction and influence of your future choices could occur with scientific precision. The scope of this surveillance was breathtaking in its thoroughness and chilling in its violation of basic human dignity. Knowledge existed about conversations you'd had in confidence, decisions you'd made in private, even spiritual experiences you'd shared only with your closest confidants. This information had been weaponized into a comprehensive strategy for psychological manipulation that would have devastated someone operating from a less secure foundation. But chosen ones don't operate from foundations that can be shaken by external pressure, and that's what made the entire intelligence-gathering operation an exercise in futility from the beginning. No amount of data about your past choices could predict how you would respond once you reached this new level of spiritual development. Attempts were being made to manipulate someone who no longer existed, using blueprints for a person you had evolved beyond during your period of inner transformation. The most damaging revelation came when someone produced actual evidence of the puppet master's coordination with the romantic alternative that had been steered toward you. Text messages, voice recordings, detailed plans for how this person would approach you, what would be said, how presentation would occur to maximize appeal to someone with your supposed psychological profile. The level of premeditation was staggering, transforming what you had perceived as merely poor judgment into something approaching orchestrated deception. These communications revealed the true depth of calculation behind what was supposed to appear as natural attraction and genuine interest. Every word of the approach had been crafted, every gesture choreographed, every moment of supposed spontaneity scripted in advance. Your spiritual alarm system hadn't just detected incompatibility, it had identified artificiality masquerading as authenticity at a level so sophisticated that most people would never have penetrated the disguise. The puppet master's chosen candidate had been fully briefed on your interests, your values, your communication style, your apparent vulnerabilities, creating a performance so perfectly tailored to your supposed preferences that resistance should have been impossible for someone operating from normal levels of consciousness. Essentially, creation had occurred of a romantic Trojan horse, beautiful on the surface but carrying within it everything necessary to infiltrate and ultimately destroy your peace of mind. Reading excerpts from these communications aloud to the room created a moment of collective horror, as everyone present realized the extent to which authentic human connection had been perverted into strategic manipulation. The puppet master hadn't just tried to control your romantic choices. Orchestration had occurred of an elaborate psychological warfare campaign designed to exploit what were perceived as your deepest needs for connection and understanding. Every assumption made about what would attract you, every calculation about your emotional triggers, every prediction about your responses revealed someone who had studied your surface behaviors while remaining completely blind to your spiritual depth. The entire strategy had been built on a fundamental misreading of your character. The romantic puppet constructed was designed to appeal to someone seeking external validation, someone whose self-worth depended on being chosen by others, someone who would sacrifice authenticity for the appearance of success in love. But you had evolved beyond the need for external validation, beyond the desire to be chosen by anyone who couldn't recognize your worth without manipulation, beyond the willingness to compromise your spiritual integrity for the comfort of conventional relationship dynamics. As these communications were shared with the room, something beautiful happened that speaks to the power of truth to transform even the most toxic situations into opportunities for collective awakening. People began sharing their own experiences of feeling manipulated by this person, their own moments of sensing that conversations and interactions were being steered toward predetermined outcomes rather than flowing from genuine interest and care. A pattern emerged of someone who treated every relationship like a chess game, who collected personal information like a strategist gathering intelligence, who viewed emotional intimacy as a tool for gaining advantage rather than a sacred space for mutual vulnerability and growth. The puppet master hadn't just targeted you for manipulation. The operation had been occurring this way with everyone in the orbit, treating human connection like a resource to be mined rather than a gift to be treasured. One particularly powerful moment came when someone described feeling like constant testing was occurring, like every conversation was an examination where words would be analyzed for weaknesses that could be exploited later. Another person revealed that sharing personal struggles had stopped because sensing occurred that vulnerability was being catalogued rather than genuinely received with compassion and support. The room began to understand that what had been witnessed in your situation wasn't an isolated incident, but a pattern of behavior that had been affecting all of them in subtle ways, only now beginning to be recognized. Your refusal to engage with the manipulation hadn't just protected you, it had exposed a system of emotional exploitation that had been operating under the guise of friendship and social connection. The violation of trust was so complete, so shocking in its calculated betrayal, that several people became physically ill as realization dawned about the extent to which their confidence had been weaponized against them. Chosen one, anyone can listen to messages like these, but few will step into their true power. We are here to help you do just that. The weekly Chosen Ones group calls are now on Zoom, and this is the moment you've been waiting for your entire life. These meetings are literal power vortexes where destinies are forged, where chosen ones unite their consciousness to create something that cannot exist in isolation. This is where everything changes. This is where you step into your greatness. Every week a doorway opens, but only for those brave enough to step through it. Watcher-level members of the Obsidian Inner Order can experience these transformative sessions live, feeling the energy surge through your entire being. In our most recent gathering, participants were stunned by revelations about the Great Pyramids of Giza as sophisticated ancient power plants and the shocking truth about Washington, D.C.'s layout, perfectly aligning with the Kabbalistic tree of life. Star Chamber members receive unlimited access to the complete recordings archive, a treasure trove of wisdom that grows more valuable with each passing week. This is your defining moment. The knowledge, the connection, the power that flows through these calls cannot be found anywhere else. Join the Obsidian Inner Order now. Link in the description. While the few remaining Star Chamber slots are still available, your presence is not just welcome, it's necessary. Will you answer the call that has been echoing through your soul? The time is now. This discovery transformed the energy in the room from anger to something approaching terror as people grasped the implications of having their private thoughts and conversations documented by someone who had already demonstrated a willingness to use personal information as ammunition. The puppet master hadn't just been collecting intelligence about you. Construction had occurred of a comprehensive archive of blackmail material that could destroy reputations and relationships throughout the entire social network. The beauty of this moment wasn't just in the exposure of these tactics, but in watching how quickly people united against a common threat once understanding occurred of what was truly being dealt with. The artificial divisions that had been carefully cultivated to keep everyone focused on judging you, instead of examining the manipulator, dissolved instantly when faced with evidence of how systematically betrayal had occurred for everyone. What followed was the most thorough social demolition you could imagine, as every person in that room began sharing information about suspicious interactions, strange requests for personal details, conversations that had felt subtly wrong but which had been dismissed as overthinking. The puppet master's entire operation unraveled as people connected patterns experienced individually into a comprehensive picture of someone who treated human relationships like a laboratory for psychological experimentation. The argument that erupted wasn't just explosive in volume, it was transformative in its complete reformation of social dynamics that had been carefully constructed over extended periods. Alliances shifted, perceptions clarified, and the puppet master found complete isolation as the very network built to control others turned against the creator, with the fury of people who had discovered their status was never friends or colleagues, but merely subjects in an ongoing experiment in manipulation. The most satisfying aspect of this social earthquake was watching how naturally everyone gravitated toward authentic connection once the artificial barriers had been removed. People who had been pitted against each other through carefully managed information began having genuine conversations for the first time in recent memory, discovering that their perceived conflicts had been manufactured by someone who benefited from keeping everyone divided and suspicious. Your name began appearing in these conversations, not as a subject for analysis or judgment, but as an example of someone who had somehow sensed the danger that everyone else had missed. People started reviewing their interactions with you, realizing that what had been interpreted as aloofness or arrogance had actually been spiritual discernment, protecting you from contamination that would have compromised your ability to see clearly. The story that began with someone else trying to write your narrative ends with you fully claiming your role as the author of your own destiny, but with a deeper understanding of what that authorship actually means. Every choice you make from authentic alignment sends signals through dimensions of reality that most people never perceive, attracting what serves your highest good while repelling what would diminish your power. The explosive argument that erupted over you wasn't really about you at all. It was about the collision between manufactured influence and authentic power, between clever manipulation and genuine wisdom, between the old paradigm of control and the emerging consciousness that refuses to be controlled. You were never their victim, you were their teacher, and the lesson they learned was that chosen ones don't dance to earthly music. As this chapter closes and new ones prepare to open, you carry with you the profound understanding that your instincts aren't suggestions to be considered, they are commands from your highest self to be obeyed without hesitation. Your standards aren't barriers to be lowered for convenience, they are filters that ensure only the worthy gain access to your energy. Your refusal to settle isn't stubbornness to be overcome, it is wisdom that protects you from connections and opportunities that would diminish, rather than amplify your divine nature. The universe has been taking notes on how you handle pressure, how you maintain integrity under attack, how you choose truth over comfort, even when truth requires standing alone against chorus of voices singing seductive lies. These notes become the blueprint for blessings that are even now making their way to your door, drawn by the magnetic field of authentic power that surrounds every chosen one who remembers who they really are. Tonight, as you process this revelation about the chaos that swirled around you while you walked in peace, remember that this is how it always works for people like us. We move through the world creating reactions we never intended, triggering responses we never sought, inspiring either elevation or destruction, simply by existing in our truth. The puppet masters will always emerge from the shadows, convinced they can direct our stories, but they never account for the fact that chosen ones don't respond to manipulation, we respond to truth. The argument is over, the smoke has cleared, and you stand victorious not because you fought, but because you refused to fight in a war that was never yours to begin with. The tremors that began this story have settled into new ground that can support the weight of authentic success, genuine connection, and opportunities that align with your highest good. Tomorrow brings possibilities that honor your true nature rather than challenging it, and you're perfectly positioned to receive them all.